It was Big Ten Media Day on Wednesday. Mike Woodson and his players spoke. Teri Moren and her players did the same. We'll get you caught up on all the important takeaways on today's episode.
You are Locked On Hoosiers, your daily podcast on the Indiana Hoosiers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Happy Thursday, everybody. You are Locked On Hoosiers, the one and only daily IU podcast. We are part of the Locked On Network, your team every day. Appreciate you guys making us your first listen, wherever you're listening or watching from. Today's episode is brought to you by Jace Medical. Empower yourself with the purchase of the Jace case, providing you with a personal supply of 5 antibiotics that treat you for 50-plus infections. Get yours today at jasemedical.com. That's jasemedical.com. Today was media day. Well, as I'm recording this today, Wednesday was media day for both the men's and women's basketball teams. In general, they went kind of as media days go. There weren't a whole lot of revelations or anything of that note. A whole lot of what you would expect. I tried to pull out some of the more interesting quotes from both the men's and women's team. We'll talk on the men's side. Mike Woodson spoke about naming Xavier Johnson and Trey Galloway his captains this season. He talked a lot about how big the loss Xavier Johnson was last season and how important he has been to this team, how important he's going to be to this team. Really a point he continued to kind of hammer home throughout media day. And it's why one of the reasons why he named Xavier X as one of his captains this season. Now, that being said, make of this what you will. Mike Woodson says he doesn't know who his starters are going to be yet. Quote, competition and practice will unveil who starts. I don't know right now who's going to be the starters. What's important to me and my staff is getting players to do the right things on both ends of the floor. All our guys are curious. They're eager. They come to work. They accept coaching. That's important when you're trying to build a ball club. I don't entirely know how much I believe that. He may not know the entire starting lineup, but especially in the backcourt, Xavier and Trey Galloway pretty much have to be your starting guards. Mackenzie Mbako certainly feels like someone that almost certainly is going to be starting. Same with Kel'el Ware. Maybe the question is with Malik Renew, who I think most people have had penciled in as a starter. There could be some questions there. Realistically, I think Mackenzie Mbako is probably best as a 4, but your 5 best players include Malik Renew, at least coming into the season. So is your focus to have your 5 best guys on the court? That's what I would say. Or put a group out there that might fit a little bit better with somebody else in the lineup. Maybe it's an Anthony Walker or a Caleb Banks or maybe even a CJ Gunn, someone that might provide a little bit more spacing, might allow Mackenzie Mbako to work a little more closer to the basket. I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is. I don't know that Mike Woodson simply doesn't know who his starters are going to be. At least all of them. I think there might be 1 or 2 that he does not know, but that was at least the message he gave on media day. He had some very honest thoughts about Kel'el Ware. Here's what he said. Quote, when I recruited that young man, I told him, you cannot go back and get what happened the year before. You can't. The word's out. They knocked you, said you were lazy. And if you commit to me, that's got to change. He made the commitment to me, and I'm going to push him to play at a higher level to help us win basketball games. I can't think about what happened at Oregon. He's got to move forward and build a new life here and help us win basketball games. Boy, brutally honest. I like that approach. Certain recruits will like that approach. I don't know that it's for everyone, but the people that are going to buy into that approach, I think, are going to have really successful futures with the program. If you look at Kel'el Ware and you told him what Mike Woodson said he told him, that The word's out. They knocked you. They said you were lazy, and then telling him, if you commit to me, that has to change. And he committed to you. You have to feel pretty good about what the future holds for Kel'el Ware. The biggest knock on him, as Mike Woodson said, was his effort level. And if he's able to acknowledge that, Kel'el Ware that is, and then acknowledge that Mike Woodson is someone that's going to get more out of him, that feels like it's setting up for a really good season for Kel'el Ware. And so I'm really excited. That makes me feel really good about what could be in store for the Hoosiers and for Ware, who could be set to have a really big season. We've said it time and time again. He has the skills. It's the mentality that had to be improved upon. Acknowledging it is at least part of it, and it certainly seems like he acknowledged it before committing or in committing to Indiana and Mike Woodson. Woodson was asked about his play style. You're not going to be shocked to learn that he didn't reveal all that much. Here's what he did say. Talking about last season, he said 53% of our play was pick and roll, 47% was posting the ball. I'm still looking at our style of play. I was accustomed to playing pick and roll in the pros. Only time will tell. I don't know about those numbers. I don't think they only ran either a pick and roll or a post up every possession, which would be what those numbers would indicate. But in general, they didn't post up on 47% of their possessions last year. They did it a lot. 47% is an enormous number. They didn't run pick and roll 53% either. But the general kind of gist is there. Mike Woodson is more familiar with running pick and roll. I mean, as we've discussed, his hand was forced a little bit with Trey Jackson-Davis, not in a bad way necessarily, just in that he had to run post-ups, but there were a lot of pick and rolls with Jalen Hood-Schifino and Trey Jackson-Davis, so it doesn't really reveal a lot about specifics for next season, but the line, I was accustomed to playing pick and roll in the pros, I think you can extrapolate and look a little bit into and maybe say that could be what IU's offense looks like this season. I think there will be a lot of pick and roll and significantly less post-ups, like far less than whatever the 47% he had for last season. You're going to more than have that, I think, this season. But what replaces that, we'll see. More transition, more pick and roll, maybe a little bit more ISO. I'll be interested to see what the breakdown is there, but it seems certainly like a more pick and roll heavy offense, which is what more modern offenses look like. So, and when you have a player like Kel'el Ware who can pick and roll, pick and pop, mix it up, you absolutely want to utilize him. Those were the big things for Mike Woodson. There were other things. I didn't really dive into everything. In general, I don't ever really think there's a lot to take away from these media days. Maybe an overall tone about a media day. And Mike Woodson talked a lot about he came here to win, and now is the time to win. And it's Big Ten titles, and it's banners, and it's all of those things. It was a similar message to what they had last year, but they're continuing. It's about winning and getting to that next level that IU hasn't quite gotten to under Woodson. He also talked about when he got here, he wanted to recruit big names. That's what he told his coaching staff, and we've obviously seen that. We've talked a lot about it in the last 3-4 months about the big names he's recruiting. So general tone is really all you can take away from these. And the general tone was a good one for the men's side. The women's side, I think there was a very interesting through line throughout their quotes, throughout their press conferences, things like that. We'll tell you what that was, how that might shape this season moving forward. Let's talk about today's sponsor first, though. Jace Case. Everyone should be empowered to care for themselves and their loved ones during the unexpected. That's why Jace Case offers that's why Jace Medical offers the Jace Case. The Jace Case provides 5 life-saving antibiotics for emergency use and gives you a peace of mind so that you're not just hoping that you have access to medication in an emergency. Jace Medical makes sure you have the medication in hand. Jace Medical is simple. They handle everything from the online evaluation to licensed pharmacy medication delivery and ongoing consultation and care. Don't get caught unprepared. Save more than $360 by getting these life-saving antibiotics with Jace Medical, plus an additional $20 off by using Locked On at checkout on jacemedical.com. That's jacemedical.com, promo code Locked On. As always, love you guys for making us your first listen each day. Friday, I hope you make Locked On College Football Live your second listen or watch from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. They will be live on every Locked On College YouTube channel. You guys have heard us talk about it. They'll talk rivalry games, playoff implications. I'm sure they'll talk a lot about Colorado, whatever's going on at Michigan State now. That's certainly of interest to the Big Ten and Hoosiers fans as well. There's a lot to talk about in the college football landscape. 11 a.m. to 1 p.m. every Friday. Locked On College YouTube channel. Catch Locked On College Football Kickoff live. Let's talk the women's basketball team. There was an interesting, as I said, kind of through line. It was one of the first questions asked. It was about the Miami game and really just kind of how the season ended last year. Sydney Parrish had a quote in which she said, "I don't think we're over the loss to Miami. I don't think you can get over it after the great season we had. People still mention it a lot, and it kind of hurts. I think that'll be another thing that drives us through the season." Teri Moren was asked about it. She said that she's kind of grown wiser in her years as a head coach and that she's able to recognize the success that they had last season, but also acknowledge Sydney. The quote she gave is pretty much how the program feels, that they had a great season, but boy, did it end on a sour note. And everybody's still thinking about that. And even the players, the new players that have come in, they might not have been a part of that, but they certainly feel what the team is feeling about that. I don't know that making revenge your central focus on a season is the best approach, nor do I think that's what IU's doing, and Teri Moren kind of said that. But having that hunger is not a bad thing, especially with how successful IU was last season. It's hard to stay at the top, and Teri Moren talked about that. It's hard to stay at the top, and this is the type of thing that gives you that hunger to do it again, to not just compete for national titles, but go into the tournament and do something. And so Teri Moren talked about how the season ended. It was a string of, I don't want to say misfortune, but if you look at the Iowa game to end the regular season, it was a slip by Chloe Moore McNeil and an incredible shot by Caitlin Clark to win that game. If you look at the the Ohio State game in the Big Ten tournament, McKenzie gets hurt in the Michigan State game. She's not fully healthy. Things go awry in a number of ways in that game. And then you look at the Miami game, Teri Moren said McKenzie didn't practice for 12 days leading up to that. Also gave Miami credit. They came out and kind of socked them in the mouth, but those are how narrow the margins are in in college basketball, not just women's basketball. So the way the season ended does kind of leave IU walking away maybe a little unfulfilled despite the history they made. It's going to be interesting to see if that carries over through the entire season. On the note about kind of staying at the top, Teri Moren said it's one thing to build it, but it's another thing to maintain it. That's why our recruiting has changed. I like our workmanlike approach in trying to take the next step. And to the point of the newcomers that came in, Teri Moren was asked about who might be a breakout player this year. Last year, she mentioned Chloe Moore McNeil, and she was right. This season, She said, quote, "Here's what I do know. The 3 that we brought in, those kids are going to have to help us. They're going to have to grow up quicker than normal. Those 3 being the 2 freshmen, Lene Beaumont and Jules Mandola, and the transfer, Sharnice Curry-Jelks. We talked about them, all of them, during the summer. The players talked about how important of a trip to Greece that was for bonding. But Beaumont and Mandola look like, at least early on, in what was essentially a scrimmage environment, they fit in well, at the very least, with what the Hoosiers are doing. And Curry-Jelks didn't look like she didn't belong. And there was nothing bad that she did, probably, was the best way to say it. And so I think all 3 are going to have roles this season. This is a deep IU team. And I think a lot of players are going to be able to play this season. And I think a lot of players will play this season. Those 3 newcomers could very much be in the rotation throughout the year and into the big games of the season. So it'll be interesting to watch. Teri Moren also talked about how you go to being a national power now, and kind of building off the point about staying at the top as well. Quote, "It takes a small village to do something like we've been able to do. And I'm so grateful for all those people. When Coach Rhett and I arrived here 9 years ago, we always said that we wanted to build our own tradition. Anyone who knows me knows that I'm a huge Indiana men's basketball fan. So to sit here and be able to say that the state of Indiana has 2 teams it can be really proud of means a lot." And that's true. And that's taken a lot of work to get to this point. Kudos to Teri Moren, man, for building this women's team into a national powerhouse. Powerhouse might be a bit strong, but a national contender. And there's going to have to be levels that they'll have to continue to hit. But this is a team that very quickly rose from afterthought, blew right through kind of being a Big Ten contender and right into the national conversation. I think they'll remain there this season. It's going to be doing that over and over again. That's going to be the challenge. But everything we've seen so far indicates that Teri Moren, her team, her staff are up for that. One other note for Hoosier Hysteria. The rapper, the artist, was announced for Hoosier Hysteria. It is Gucci Mane, who I know my audience varies in age pretty drastically between YouTube and listening to the podcast, but that's a really big get. That's really fun. I know music is very subjective, but it was enough to make me think maybe I need to get credentials and go watch a Gucci Mane concert in Assembly Hall. That will be a very popular guest. That's what probably matters most about these. That will get people talking. That will get recruits wanting to come. Those types of things are what matter about this. So very cool, very fun, very notable, regardless if you guys may or may not have heard about them. But that's all that was kind of the takeaways for Media Day. There were other quotes and general thoughts and things like that, but to me, those are some of the most notable ones. We're close. We're very close to basketball season starting. I could not be more excited. Until we get to that point, we still have some football to talk about. There's an Akron game coming up this weekend. Let's get you some first looks at Akron, who, spoiler alert, are a really bad team. We will tell you how bad they are here in just a moment. Now is the perfect time to get started with FanDuel. The NFL season is starting. The college football season is underway. They are America's #1 sports book. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. The line for the IU game, the spread has gone up a little bit. It was at 16.5 earlier this week. It's up to 17 for the Hoosiers, and over under a 46.5, I believe, has gone up as well. I believe it was 44.5 earlier this week. So Hoosiers are bigger favorites, and they're expecting more points. It's going to be interesting. They expect more points. We'll talk about that in a minute, but you guys can get $200 in bonus bets with FanDuel. Win or lose, no matter what you place your money on, $5 bet will get you $200 in bonus bets you can use on spreads, player props, over-unders, all that and more. So visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and kick off the NFL season. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL. Let's look at Akron, get some initial thoughts on them, what type of team, what type of opponent they're going to be. They come into this game 1-2. The 2 losses were a 3-point loss to Temple, who they played on the road. Temple is Temple lost by 30 to Rutgers, so They then beat Morgan State at home. They lost 24-21 and then won 24-21 over Morgan State. Morgan State's really bad as well. And then last week they played Kentucky and got throttled, lost 35-3 in that one. So they come in with a 1-2 record and they've struggled. It's going to be, there's a lot of interesting aspects to this team, to how Akron is going to play. Most notably, they seem to play 2 quarterbacks. I don't know how regularly they play 2 quarterbacks. It's in week 1, they had DJ Irons as the team's leading passer with 205 yards. And he was the only quarterback that played. Week 2, Irons was not the leading quarterback. It was Undercuffer Jr., Jeff Undercuffer Jr., who was the leading quarterback. Undercuffler, I'm not sure how you pronounce it. He threw for 200 yards in that game and a win. Irons threw 9 passes. And then against Kentucky, it was Irons who was quarterback again as well. Undercuffler threw for 200 yards and a win. He also had 3 interceptions in that game. So he wasn't great by any means. In total, Irons has taken more snaps, has more yards, but they've only thrown for 661 yards in 3 games. They have only rushed in total for 3 games for 127 yards. Your biggest takeaway from this, or going into this, is that Akron's offense is anemic. Just truly, truly awful. They have played bad opponents and have been truly, truly awful. This is a chance for IU's defense again to have a big showing and perform at a really high level and boost some of those stats again, because this is I can't undersell how bad this offense has been through 3 weeks. According to SP Plus, which is the metric that we use a lot from ESPN, they're 130th overall in SP Plus. There are only 133 teams in FBS. So just shy of being the worst team in FBS this season. They're 120th in offense, 124th in defense. If you look at Pro Football Focus, it rates their defense quite a bit higher, but rates their offense worse. So the defense seems all right, relatively speaking. They still have a lot of weaknesses. They give up a lot of big plays, but the offense is just really bad. There's really no other way to put it. They are just really bad. This is a game Indiana should win comfortably. Doesn't even fully describe it. They should blow this team out and just dominate them and really make a statement in this game. Is that a good thing? Yes, overall getting a win is not a bad thing, and that is what should happen in this one. But should IU be trying to schedule games against a little bit tougher opponents? I don't know. They've had a some tougher games so far to start the season. Maybe if this was ordered a little bit differently and we played Akron, Indiana State, then Louisville, then Ohio State, it wouldn't feel as weird. But so far, Indiana's been kind of up and down, and Akron has been just down, just really bad. So we'll dive in a little bit deeper on some of it in tomorrow's episode. If I'm being honest, there isn't a whole lot to look at. This is just simply a bad Akron team, and Indiana should win this very comfortably. Even with Indiana's offensive struggles at times, they should win this very comfortably. We'll look at a little bit more, the lines, the history between these two teams, all that stuff as we do on Fridays. So be sure you guys are subscribed. Everydayers can check that out tomorrow. Thanks as always, guys, for making Locked On Hoosiers your first listen. Follow us on Twitter if you haven't already. Subscribe to the podcast. Leave a rating and review. All of that great stuff. Most importantly, though, everybody, hope you all have a terrific Thursday. And as always, Elio.